Hello and welcome to another new episode of Learning Simplified. Today in this tutorial, we are going to learn about how to create a CSS3 animation without the usage of CSS3 keyframes. That means in our previous tutorial so far, all that we had learned, we had used some kind of keyframes out there and we had used them to create our animation, but from now and so on, we will be creating a series of tutorials that will be using animation without any keyframes. We are practically going to use the mouse hover action in this condition, and we will see that on mouse hovering a particular animation is taking place into that definite holder that we have created so far. Now before we move on, the first thing that I would like to say that in our previous tutorial, in demonstrating the phenomenon of basic text animation, we had seen that we had created a text animation over here using some keyframes, but on the other hand there was a floating condition of this particular text. Now in this particular case, in order to prevent that, all we can do, we can use a particular height attribute to that particular zoomed text holder that we had created in an order to create that basic text animation. And there it goes. That is why we can see that that kind of floating that was used, that was been seen in our previous condition, all of them are practically gone and it is now acting normally. There is no up down of this particular scroll bar, everything is static in its position. So if we just remove this particular height attribute from here and save, get back to our project and reload, we will see that this floating thing is now recurring back and everything is now having a little bit of floating into its position. So in an order to prevent that, all we need to do, we need to create this particular height attribute over here, and you may provide any possible value that could be used in an order to create that particular event over here. And if we get back to our project, and reload, we will now see that this particular holder, it is now getting fixed into that particular position, and the text inside, it is getting bigger or it is getting smaller, and there's absolutely no ups and downs in this particular scroll bar that we are viewing right over here. So this is the remedy that we had to make from our previous tutorial, and now we will proceed into our next chapter, which is known as CSS3 animation without keyframes. And in that order, all we will be using here, we will be using transition properties used along to create this particular CSS3 animation. Now what is a transition? The CSS transition practically determines the change in property values from one state to another over a given duration of time. So once again, we need a definite duration of time through which this particular animation will be taking place, and we will be defining the change of properties from one state into other over that particular duration of time. Now this transition property, in defining this transition property into a particular holder or into a particular container, we need to positively mention the transition property itself. That means which property should be changed from one state to another. Then we need a transition duration, the time during which this animation, this change of properties will be taking place. Then we need a transition timing function. Now in which manner we practically want to have our animation over here. Should it be starting slow and then it should be getting fast and then it should be slowing down again, or it should be maintaining a constant speed from start to the finish? So all those things are practically included into this transition timing function. And the next thing that you could be using or you could be not is the transition delay. So you could have put a particular delay to your animation or you could have not. That depends upon you, and definitely that depends upon that project. So this transition property, in short, it specifies the name of the property where the transition is taking place. Now this property, it could be a width, it could be background, it could be a font size, or any other those sort of properties, or any kind of dimensional changes, those should be mentioned over here. Then comes this transition duration. It specifies the tenure of the transition in seconds or milliseconds. And in the next case, transition timing function, that defines the speed curve effect of the transition. And in the last case, transition delay, it defines the delay in transition effect to take place. But on the other hand, this transition timing function, it also has some particular differences out there, such as it could be linear, or it could be is in, it could be is out, or is in out, or is the default value in this particular case. So what are all those things? Linear means that your animation will be taking a constant speed from start to end. But on the other hand, for a slow start but for a faster ending, you should be using this particular is in property, and the is out property is entirely opposite to this particular attribute is in. That means it will be ending in a slow version. Is in out means slow start, slow end, and is means slow start and slow end, but there is no such thing in between. Now you might be confused with this particular properties is in out and is. Is in out means this change of states, it will be starting slow and it will be ending slow, but nothing is mentioned what will be happening in the middle. But on the other hand, while we choose this particular transition timing function effect, it will be slow starting and slow ending again, but in between the change of states, it will be fast enough. So all these things we will be getting acquainted with it, but first of all, let's put this thing into an example. So right now we will be getting back to our project, and we will be creating some kind of holders or some kind of things out there, stuffs out there, in an order to carry out this particular project. So let's get back to our project.